And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a beautiful Cajun sort of Creole recipe for you. This is most commonly known as Shrimp Chippewa from a very fine dining restaurant or an excellent Creole Cajun restaurant in Houston, Texas. And really the linchpin of this whole recipe is the compound butter that we're going to make, which basically serves as the sauce. So we're going to start off with some butter, the zest and juice of a lemon, some sun-dried tomatoes, some garlic, some shallots. We're also going to use dried chili pepper, some herbs. We've got some oregano, some basil in there, some frozen shrimp. We're also going to be using a little bit of cognac, and as well a little bit of hot sauce. And you can use the hot sauce of your choice. We're showing Tabasco here. In our actual recipe, we used one of our homemade hot sauces. But first things first, we are going to do the mise en place to get everything ready to make the compound butter. So the first thing we're going to do is chop up our sun-dried tomatoes, because these need to reconstitute for a little while. So we're going to chop these pretty fine, a nice fine dice on our sun-dried tomatoes. We're just going to pop these into a measuring cup, because we are going to reconstitute our sun-dried tomatoes with cognac. So we're just going to put these into one of our little measuring cups. And there we go. And from here, we are going to add just enough cognac to moisten them up a little bit. So by the time we're ready to make our compound butter, all of the cognac should have absorbed into those sun-dried tomatoes. So then you get that really lovely tomato flavor and that nice little warm flavor from the cognac. So you can see here, it's just enough to almost cover the sun-dried tomatoes. So we're just going to pop those down. We're going to push them down so that we have as much contact as possible. We want to make sure that it absorbs almost completely. We don't want a whole lot of liquid because we want to make this compound butter so that it doesn't break. We want everything to emulsify properly. Meanwhile, we're going to get our spices ready. So that's our herbs and our chili pepper. We broke the stem off, of course. And we're just going to burr mix those up until they're very, very fine. And you can see there quite a little bit of dust stuck to the lid there, so sometimes it takes a little bash to get everything off the lid and into the grinder. There we go. So there's our little homemade spice. And then for our lemon, very much like the lemonade video we did last week, we are going to use a grater box to zest this lemon. And because we're using a grater box and not a microplane grater, you do have to be careful that you're not getting too much of the pith, or else you'll get sort of a bitter flavor in your final dish. So we're going to add in our lemon zest. And then we are going to, we're also going to use the juice from that lemon, so we'll cut that in half, give it a little slice along the inside, which just sort of helps it release more juice. And then we're just going to put that through a strainer. And we're just going to let that sit for a little while we're getting everything else together, while we're waiting for the cognac to soak into those sun-dried tomatoes as well. So you can see here, that's the juice of one lemon. Pretty juicy lemon. Actually, turned out very, very nicely. Now, when you see that there's almost no liquid left, that needed a little bit more time. But when there's no liquid left in your sun-dried tomatoes, that's when we're getting ready to put that into our dish. But while we're waiting for that, we're going to grate the garlic and our shallots as well. And this really lets the flavor of those two beautiful aromatics spread through the whole dish very, very easily when you grate them like that. Now, grating shallots is very tough because they release a lot of that sort of onion gas. Your eyes will water, but it will make it worth it. It's really, really an excellent way to get your shallot into something like compound butter or a marinade. We're going to add our lemon juice, and we're going to add our sun-dried tomatoes. And again, these are the cognac-soaked sun-dried tomatoes. And you want to make sure that you've got enough balance between the amount of liquid you're using and the butter. So It seems like a lot of butter. It does make a lot of compound butter. You can use this for a lot of different things, though. And you want to mix it until everything is well combined. We're going to add in our hot sauce. As I said, we showed you some Tabasco at the beginning, but we used our own homemade hot sauce for this. This one's made out of calamondins and some of our little homegrown green onions. And we're just going to mix that in for a little bit of kick, a little extra citrusy zing to it as well. And once everything's all together like this, it's pretty much done. So this is all mixed together. And you don't want to use this right away. So we're going to set this aside. And we're going to put it in, wrap it up. And this is going to go into the fridge, ideally overnight. You want it to rest for at least a few hours. Let those flavors really marry together in there. So we're going to get this out onto a piece of parchment. We're just going to try and shape it a little bit into a kind of a log shape. So here we go. That's a rough log shape, and don't be afraid to shape it a little bit as you roll it. And we're just going to roll it up. And just shape it a little bit with your hands as you're rolling it up. Make sure that it's a pretty even shape. And we're going to pop this into the fridge. We're just going to roll it up like that, pop it into the fridge for a little while, and it's going to sit there for at least a few hours. Again, ideally overnight. And chill and make sure that all of those flavors come together a little bit, and that the butter becomes more solid, because right now it's been mixed, it's been at room temperature for quite some time, and it's quite soft. So we want to just make sure that it's nice and fridge temperature. Once you're ready to cook, though, we're going to get our butter out of the fridge, we're going to get our shrimp defrosted, and everything is ready to go. So we're going to start off by preparing to use the butter. We're not going to add the butter right away because we don't want it to burn. We want to give it a little bit of time to cook without burning. And the butter is also going to be the sauce for this dish. So you don't, you're going to be using a little bit more than you expect. So all of the amounts are going to be in the description below. And the first thing we're going to do is actually start with a little bit of neutral oil in our pan. So we've got our pan nice and hot. We're going to add some neutral oil. You can use vegetable oil for this, or grapeseed oil or anything like that. Just a good plain neutral oil. This will help stop the butter from burning when we add it, and will also, just provide a little bit of a medium for cooking our shrimp. Now we're going to start the shrimp in this nice hot oil. Once everything's ready to sizzle, you can see everything's sizzling as soon as it hits the pan. And some of those tails start changing colors right away. That means your pan is good and hot. Make sure you're using a pan that gives you enough space. You don't want to crowd everything. A little dash of salt, a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper as well. And then once the first side is cooked, we're going to flip these over, or flip as many of them as we can with the pan. Just make sure you get in there with your tongs and flip over any that didn't go. So now that the first side is cooked and we've got the second side hitting the heat, it is time to get our butter in here. So we are going to just chop it up just a little tiny bit into slightly smaller pieces, and into the pan the butter goes. So this is going to impart a lot of that flavor into the other side of the shrimp. And is also going to come together. It's going to emulsify a little bit with that oil that's in the pan. And this is really going to make our sauce. So we're just going to let those cook together for a little while. That butter is going to melt. You can see it starting to melt already. And all of those flavors start coming out. It doesn't hurt to add a little splash of cognac on top of everything as we're going. Now, this sort of recipe is usually done really, really quickly. This cooking process does not take very long. It was, in fact, done tableside at a couple restaurants in the Houston area. And once those shrimp are all the way cooked, that butter has melted. You can see it has really nicely condensed into a really lovely sauce. Very nice little pan sauce. And this is ready to go. So this is all cooked. Once the shrimps are cooked to your preference, it is time to plate. So we're going to put this over some rice. So you just want to pop a few of those beautiful shrimp on top there. And then you want to get some of that beautiful pan sauce. So again, this is your really lovely flavored compound butter, and we're just going to pour that over the shrimp. It's going to soak into the rice, and makes an absolutely delicious sauce. Very, very simple. Once you've got that compound butter, it's really easy to do anything you like with it, and you can cook a host of things with it. So really absolutely delicious, and we hope you'll give this one a try. So if you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe, and if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.